Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
Welcome to DSC's Campfires with Larry Weishuhn, a unique blend of hunting, fishing, wildlife conservation, and the outdoor lifestyle. DSC's Campfires is brought to you by DSC, Conservation, Education, and Advocacy. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Taurus, award-winning revolvers and pistols. Stealth Vision, high-tech, precision-driven equipment for today's modern hunter. Red 55 Winery, signature wines from Emmy Award-winning country artist Miranda Lambert, owned by Rick and Beverly Lambert. And the Choctaw Hunting Lodge, home of some of the finest hunting in North America. Now, here's Larry.
If you listen carefully, you can hear the fire crackling in the background. What a fabulous place. I'm down on the El Durangueno Ranch down in Durango, Mexico, owned by Alonzo Ayala and his family. They've had this place now for, 60, 70 years. The facility that we're staying at during the hunt that we're doing is just phenomenal. It's a huge hacienda, fireplaces at both ends. Food has been absolutely fabulous. If you want to learn more about what I'm going to tell you, you can get in touch with me through a lot of different ways, and including on Patreon, we do the MR Whitetail. That's capital M and a capital a capital M and a capital W. All the rest of them are small letters, and you can go to that site by going to Patreon/MR Whitetail. We're going to do a lot of different things there. So many different opportunities there that I can put out that I can't do on just a regular podcast. Be doing some video things there. A lot of little different tips dealing with hunting and wildlife management and things that really I need to do somewhere else besides just the regular podcast. But we'll try to do as much of that as we can. But really want to invite you there to join the Mr. Whitetail Campfire Club, if you will. And going to be doing some giveaways there as well, too, as we hit in the future. But with all that said, I'm here, as I mentioned, on the El Durangueno Ranch, having just completed an absolutely fabulous Coues deer hunt. Now, Coues deer are a little subspecies if you're not familiar with the Coues deer, and I can't imagine these days hardly anybody not being familiar with Coues deer. They live in the Southwest. A really big buck will weigh probably about 125 pounds. I'm talking about a really big one. And older mature buck, most of them are going to field dress somewhere in the neighborhood of, 85 to maybe 100 pounds at the very, very most. They're very unique in so many different ways. They have a tendency to be a little bit grayer colored than most whitetail species are. Their ears tend to be a little bit larger in comparison to the body of another type of whitetail that you find farther north. And interestingly, when they carry their tail, when they're flagging, like our regular whitetail, he'll hold it almost parallel to his body. Almost horizontal to his body, whereas the Coues whitetail, his tail comes all the way over the top of his back to where it's more parallel to the back than it is standing straight up. But these little animals, they often call the gray ghost of the desert, something I think Jack O'Connor mentioned many, many years ago and have been written about several times as being the gray ghost of the desert. And if you were to look at them, you would understand, because if you are looking for them, they have a way of hiding right in the middle of what you would consider, no, there's nothing there. Then all of a sudden you see an antler, you might see a nose, or you see a set of eyes, or an ear wiggle, or if they're standing up, maybe the wiggle of a tail. So it's they're so much fun to hunt. Now the El Durangueno, where I am right now, It's a little bit different because it's very much, we're up at an elevation of 40, we're at about 8,500 feet at the lodge, up to about 9,000 feet. A lot of different type of vegetation. Now, if you've hunted or seen photographs from Sonora, where I've hunted them in the past, there you have the big saguaro cactus and barrel cactus and very desert type country. Well, down here on the El Durangueno, which is kind of at the very tip end of the Sierra Madre range in Mexico, the mountain range, there's a lot of pine trees, juniper, all kinds of oaks. Absolutely fabulous, fabulous area. This ranch really is known for its Gould wild turkey hunting, and that's where it kind of got started in the hunting business. But then they kind of gravitated to also the Coues deer. But I have to mention before we really get into the Coues deer as well too, there's some of the most unbelievable elk hunting you could ever imagine down here. There were elk here originally. Alonzo and his family many years ago brought in elk from the Indian reservations in New Mexico, released them, and there is a huge herd here now that encompasses this 57,000 acre ranch and some of the adjoining ranches as well too. It's not uncommon for them during the fall, and they can hunt them during the fall when the beagling is going on for the few hunters that they bring in here to take bulls that are in the 400 class or better. Unbelievable. Great way to hunt down here would be to come back and hunt for elk, and that's something I may try to do in the future. But really want to kind of spend a little bit more time talking about the Coues deer on this particular hunt. Down here with Terry Anderson and Braden Hoffman. Those two guys, I've known Terry for a long time, and he's very much involved in all kinds of different wildlife conservation efforts throughout North America and a little bit throughout the world as well too. Braden Huffman is here with his son Connor, and they're from West Virginia, and they work very much with Terry on all kinds of land reclamation type projects, and his specialty happens to be reclaiming streams for trout fishing and for trout, and just trying to bring those streams back as much as they can to native situation. The other person that's down here is Chris Clark, and he's here with his lady friend Lauren, and Chris happened to be the one who bought the hunt at the DSC Foundation Gala in 2025 that was graciously donated by the El Durangueno Ranch, and having a great time. The food here is phenomenal, but the deer hunting is something truly very special. I hunted here last year and could not wait to come back. The buck I took last year I shot really kind of on the last day, and they'd seen him the day before, and when I shot him, he was standing such that his head was kind of hidden behind a tree, and when I shot, he went down, and I realized he had broken most of the points off of that one side, but still just an absolutely fabulous buck that, by the time I get home, should be just about ready. I had double nickel taxidermy do the work there, and those guys are so phenomenal in what they do. But this hunt, we started out, came down, and we're here right at the very beginning stages of the rut. That can be really good, and it can be a little bit frustrating at times. It can be really good in the fact that you're seeing quite a few deer. Now, the population on the El Durangueno, as far as Coues deer is concerned, it's not uncommon some days to see 20 or more deer. Some days are different. Some days you may just see one or two or even none, but kind of the nature of deer hunting when you get right down to it. This particular trip, the first morning out, I was hunting with Zordo. He is the biologist here, if you will, on the property. Does not speak hardly any English, but it's amazing how well hunters can sometimes communicate even when there's a language barrier. But hunted with Zordo last year, and could not wait to get out with him. So we hunted an area the first morning, got in there and drove over rough roads for about an hour to get to an area where we could stop, and waited for it to get daylight and walked to an area and to where we could glass this canyon and hillside, and almost immediately spotted a deer. But we'd gotten there a little bit quicker than we wanted to, or maybe that's not really the fact. What happened was we had a lot of cloud cover. Had it been clear or partly cloudy, we'd have had more than sufficient light to see the buck that was only about 125 yards away. Looked at him, could tell that it was an older mature buck just simply because of the body, but could not see anything about his antlers because they were really dark, and he was in an area that was, even though it was fairly open, was still shaded to where you could not see what kind of antlers he had. Watched him for a little while, and he started walking away, and about the time he disappeared, he walked across an area where there was a bunch of yellow, whitish colored grass, and when he did, I could see that, oh my goodness, I should have shot this buck when I first saw him, because he had 10 points and probably would have scored somewhere around 120 or so. Now, it only takes 110 for a typical to go into the Boone and Crockett record book, and this deer surely would have gone there without any problem at all. Spent the rest of the morning looking and glassing and walking very slowly and stopping and sitting and watching areas, and ended up seeing another 7 bucks, mostly young 8 points. And, had I not been someone who had shot Coues deer in the past, these were at least 4-year-old deer, and a couple of them, and I would have certainly shot one of those. They probably would have scored right at 100. Now, if you're hunting Coues deer, or you've hunted Coues deer, you know that a 100-point Boone and Crockett buck is a pretty darn good deer. Now, that's comparable to a 150 or 160 in a regular whitetail deer. But I've been fortunate. I've hunted Coues deer here now in Durango, but also in Sonora numerous times, and at least once over in Chihuahua as well, too. So I passed up bucks, got back to camp for lunch that day, and had a fabulous lunch, checked on the other hunters and to see how they had done, and they'd seen younger bucks and does, but not anything they were interested in pulling the trigger on. And so went back out the afternoon, and I won't bore you with all the different things that happened, but excuse me, but what I will tell you is the kind of the tail end of the hunt. Now, the last year when I was here, I shot my buck on the second to last day, and it came down to the second of the last day. We had, on the second morning, Zordo and I had walked up a mountain, sat down where we could watch the very tops of where 2 canyons converged, and had seen a really good, nice 8-point buck. Unfortunately, he was about 800 yards away and no way to get closer. But also had seen another buck in there that was a pretty darn good deer. So we visited and decided that we should go back to that area on the second last day where we spent the second morning. Got in there before daylight after a long drive, wait there for the sun to start coming up, and oh, this country is absolutely gorgeous with all the different vegetation that's here in the terrain. And sat there for a little bit and waited, and got a little bit of light coming up, and we decided to start our walk. Now, the walk up the mountain took probably about 20 minutes or so, but along the way we would stop every few, maybe 10, 15, 20 yards and do some glassing of the hillsides that we could see. I got set up finally with just about before the sun came up, and with my back against a rock, and we're sitting there, and Zordo's down the way just a little bit to where we can cover a little bit more of a bigger area, probably only about maybe 20 steps or so away from me. And sitting there, and it finally gets light enough, and we spot a really nice 8-point buck. He's about right at 400 yards away, and he's looking for doe, but there's no doubt. I immediately put down the Stealth Vision rangefinder binoculars that I was carrying. I'd already ranged the distance. I knew several spots, if I happened to see a deer, what kind of hold I'd have to do or what kind of dial-up I'd have to do on my scope. But this buck, he was out there for just a hair. I got very quickly in and trying to get in as comfortable a prone position as I could on a rock. Now, there's a bunch of agave there as well, too, right there where I was, and I ended up getting poked by the agave as I was trying to get set up. But I knew the distance was right at 400. I had soon dialed up the distance on my Stealth Vision SVT scope that I have. It's at 3 to 18 is by 44. It's one of my favorite scopes because it's got the dial up. It's got the to make sure that the rifle is properly set up in terms of a straight up and down, and gosh, it's also got the little red reticle, the lit reticle I could turn on if I needed to, but I really didn't need to. But got set up, and this deer just would not stay in one spot long enough to get a shot at him, except for when he was behind a bunch of brush. That's when he would stand still, and finally he trailed off, and I'm going, oh my God, I probably missed the opportunity at what appeared to be almost a Boone and Crockett buck, a really long tine and nice wide 8-point. Now, Boone and Crockett, it only takes 110 to get in, but that's like a 170, 175 class regular whitetail deer. So, a little bit of remorse there about not getting the shot and that deer staying still long enough. And so we sat back down, and I wasn't long after that, another nice young 8-point came by that probably about the same distance. He probably would have been right at 100. Now, again, had I not in the past taken some really nice Coues deer and knew what this property was capable of producing, that's a buck I probably would have taken or tried to. A little bit later, I'm sitting there, I'm looking down in this broad valley and catch this really big whitetail buck, big-bodied, big antlered. Looked through the binoculars, very quickly switched to the scope because with it I could crank it up to 16 to 18 and see what this buck really was. And I could tell he was a tall 8-point, the same buck that we'd seen earlier in the morning. He was running, he disappeared, and thought, well, maybe he'll come back out of that bottom and kind of head back up in the high country where we were. And so we sat there probably for another 30, 40 minutes and nothing. And finally Zordo said, motion, let's go back to the vehicle and let's drive around the area to where this buck had disappeared to. Sounded like a great plan to me. So got back to the vehicle, unloaded my rifle. These roads are rather bumpy, and out of safety's sake, even though I kept the rifle pointed out the window as we were driving, I wanted to remove the shell just in case for some reason I accidentally kicked the safety forward and put it in the fire and somehow or another, maybe pull the trigger. So get in the vehicle, and we're driving along into this area close to where I'd seen this buck running, and Zordo motioned through hand signals. Was this where the buck was when you saw him? And I motioned, yes, it was, and I pointed at a tree where he had run right in front of, and he nodded, and with that, we continued on down the trail, and we'd driven probably another maybe quarter mile or so, and I look out into the edge of this flat before it drops off, kind of studded with all kinds of vegetation, and here's this buck chasing this whitetail doe, and they're being followed by this fawn as well too, and immediately recognize this buck. It's the same one we've seen twice before that morning, and so man, I tell Zordo, I see it, he sees it about the same time I do. We stop the vehicle. I jump out of the vehicle, run over to where I've got a good solid rest, and I was going to shoot this buck in running, because I've shot a lot of running deer, and the buck stopped, and but he kind of stopped behind a little screen of brush. But I'm shooting a Mossberg 20-inch carbine, if you will, and using a 7mm PRC, using the 175 grain ELDX Hornady Precision Hunter. Now, there's some people that have said a few bad things about him, but about that particular, but I can't imagine why, because to me that is the most accurate, the most deadly bullet that I have ever put through a rifle, and that includes going on 70 years of hunting now. So kind of should say a little bit about the Precision Hunter 175 grain ELDX and about the 7mm PRC as well. But this buck's got a little screening brush just right in front of him, but I can see a spot right between where two limbs where I can put a bullet, and should be able to put this deer down very quickly, humanely right there. And so I push the safety forward, pull the trigger, the gun goes, click. I had failed to chamber around when I got out, and about that time, the buck slowly started walking. Now, the distance was just shy of 300 yards, but I knew exactly where my rifle was hitting at 300 yards from having shot a bunch of it, and even coming up here where we've got this kind of elevation, I had the opportunity to take one shot at 100 yards, and I took a shot at 300 yards just to confirm that my settings were right, or my estimations of settings were right on my a Stealth Vision rifle, Stealth Vision scoped rifle, if you will. So I got ready after finally chambering around, pushed the safety forward again, and the buck just started walking, and when he did, I had a good solid rest. I knew I could make the shot and pull the trigger, and lost him in recoil. And about that time, I heard Zordo, who was standing right behind me watching, he goes, "Good shot," in a kind of a broken Spanish, and my God, he good shot. And of course, I couldn't see the deer. Man, I was looking for it. I thought, man, if he's running. About that time, another deer ran. I didn't realize it was a doe, but I could just see kind of a screening of the behind and front of the deer with the tail upright. Could see the white disappearing. I thought, oh my gosh, I hit this deer, but maybe he won't go very far. So I hand my rifle to Zordo and say, "Zordo, please go finish off the deer if he tries to get up. I'm tired and I'm worn out, and it's a long way to where he is." So I said, "I'll follow you." So he grabs my rifle. I stay right behind him, and I probably within about 20, 30 steps behind him. I'm following him, and he walks to a point at about 300 yards and just stands there and kind of starts looking around. And I thought, oh my God, he hadn't found the deer. And Either I totally missed, although the shot looked really well when I pulled the trigger. I knew exactly where the crosshairs were. He stands there, and as I get a little closer, he kind of shrugs his shoulders and goes, and then points away and shows the deer like a deer flagging. And I go, oh my gosh, we either got to follow this deer now, or I thought, oh my goodness. Here I missed my opportunity. Maybe I've wounded a deer. What are we going to do? And I'm standing there, and about that time, he turns around, and he's got a huge smile on his face, and he starts laughing because now he's seeing the frustration on my face about thinking I either missed or unfortunately wounded this deer. And he points about 20 steps ahead, and here lays this absolute monster of a Coues deer. As I'm walking up, I can see it's got, sure enough, 8 points, long tines, a long main beam, good widespread, probably about, 15 or so, 16 inches, probably 15 inches inside. And he's huge. And walk up over to him and just admire the deer. Pick him up, and I notice that his left beam is broken off just right in front of his G2, but I really didn't care. I mean, this deer was an absolute monster in so many different ways. I'd hunted extremely hard for many days of walking up and down mountains and glassing and sitting and passing up younger bucks and passing up bucks, too, that weren't quite the size that I'd hoped to find. So, as I said, I'm walking up there, and I'm standing by this deer saying, "Thank you, Lord, for this great opportunity." I'm hugging on Zordo for all the great efforts that he's put in. Now, when you get to be my age, I get tickled a lot of time. They'll show a picture on Facebook somewhere and say, "Well, I'm 70 years old, and he's still going at it strong." Well, I'm 78 years old this year, and I'm still going at it strong. And that kind of went through my mind. And not as spry as I used to be about working the mountains, but Zordo had been so very kind. As I was heading up the mountains, when I got tired, he would stop, and he'd wait for me to catch up with him. And then he'd wait for me to catch my breath, and away we'd go again. So he had been doing this all week and just really doing a great job of spotting animals, pointing out animals to me, and visiting as best as we could, with my not being able to speak Spanish, about some of the deer that are there and a little bit about the wildlife biology part of it. All that was going through my mind as I was shaking his hand many, many times, and just absolutely thrilled over the Coues that I shot. I wanted another big Coues deer. I'd shot a real nice one last year that had all the tines broken off on one side once you got up to the G2, and I've hunted them in Sonora, and I've hunted them in Chihuahua, and I've hunted now here in Durango. And this deer is the second best one that I've ever shot. I shot a deer a few years ago in Sonora that made the Boone Crockett non-typical. He grossed 135. I'm not sure what this deer will score with the broken main beam, but there's no doubt if he had that main beam, he would have scored probably in the 120s at least. So absolutely monster of a Coues deer. As far as I'm concerned, Oh my gosh, he looks out of this world good. The stories I'll tell about him will last as long as I do, particularly about jumping out of the vehicle, running to a place to get a solid rest, and then having the first shot go click. And then having to recover and making a good shot. This deer had just started walking when I shot him. But again, I'm so familiar with the rifle and the ammunition and all the good things, and having shot deer a lot and passed and even running deer. And I felt very confident about the shot. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken it. I'd just waited until the animal stopped or ran off, or like I said, if I could have gotten a good running shot at him, possibly would have shot at him. But as it worked out, it couldn't have been any better. Got back to camp, and of course the guys here that were in camp and also the guides were just truly ecstatic, as was Alonzo. He knew how hard I'd hunted and how much I wanted to take a really good Coues deer. And oh my goodness, now sitting around the campfire while Terry and Brian, I'm sorry, not Brian, but the other guys are out hunting, and hopefully they'll come back in here in just a little bit and tell a story as we sit around the campfire this afternoon, and I'll try to get their story about their hunt as well, too. If not, they'll be out hunting. Now, Terry is using my Mossberg 7mm PRC. Yesterday afternoon, after I shot my deer, Lauren, who's here with Chris Clark, she shot her deer, a really nice 8-point with my same rifle, stealth vision scope, Hornady combination. And as I said, Terry Anderson is out this morning with it, and we'll hunt with it hopefully to take a deer this morning. And if he takes a deer this afternoon, then Chris Clark will take it back out again this afternoon. So says a lot about that particular Mossberg rifle, the Hornady ammo, and the stealth vision scope. Can't say enough good things about those particular products. I love them dearly. This one's easy to handle, extremely accurate with that ammunition and using that scope. And as I'm sitting here by the fire by myself this morning and just contemplating going to the Dallas DSC Atlanta Convention here in a few days, which this will probably air after you've heard after you've been to Atlanta, but we'll try to have done several things there as well with different individuals that I know, both for Patreon, but also for the regular podcast as well too. But again, I want to say thank you to the Durango Ranch and Mossberg and Hornady and Stealth Vision to help make this hunt possible for me. And you know what? I'm seriously wanting to come back next year. We'll see how things go in the world and how my health holds as I'm getting to a little bit older age. And really want to try to prove, though, however, that, even if you're 80 years old, you love to hunt, you can still get out, and hopefully that'll be the case in the next couple of years, because I really want to come back here to the El Durangueno and continue hunting Coues deer down in this area. Most fantastic place to hunt Coues deer I've ever been. Now, as I said, if you want to learn more, you can get in touch with me on Patreon, or if you can't go to my Facebook, Larry Weishuhn page, and send me a direct message or a personal message, and I'll provide you with the ammunition so that you can come hunt this property as well too. Easy flight from DFW in Texas to Durango. They pick you up there and get you to the ranch and get you back there to the airport to get you home again. And they'll even let you use their rifles. I always want to bring mine, but they've got some great rifles here that you can use as well too. But now you know a little bit about the story of my particular hunt on this particular hunting season for Durango and Durango Ranch. Look forward to catching up with y'all around the campfire somewhere down the way. And again, if you get a chance, I'd love to have you part of my campfire club on Patreon. It's Patreon/MR Whitetail, and the M and W are capitalized. And like I said, we'll be doing all kinds of giveaways and providing all kinds of bonus information there in terms of video footage and maybe even a few old TV shows. And like I said, the giveaways, who knows what might be a part of that. Somewhere down the way, I may even try to offer a hunt that the Patreon subscribers can go to and or maybe even give away one of those hunts. Who knows? So look forward to catching up with you around the campfire. And until we do, all the best to you, and hope to see you right back here next week.
DSC's Campfires with Larry Weishuhn has also been brought to you by The Crown Bar in LaGrange, Texas, the Texas Wildlife Association, Double Nickel Taxidermy, and Burnham Brothers Game Calls.